Pokemon is in a funny spot right now. Now, let me explain. You had the DS era, which, in my opinion, was the gold standard. See what I did there? For Pokemon. Like, to this day, if you wanted to see a high quality Pokemon game, just play either Heart Gold, Soul Silver, play Platinum, play Black and White, or Black and White 2. We don't talk about Diamond and Pearl though, but that's okay. Plus, they had so many good spin off games, like with the Mystery Dungeon games, they had the Pokemon Ranger games. There was Troze, but I don't know if anyone even played Troze. But yeah, the DS era of Pokemon was great. And then we had the 3DS era, which was not perfect. It had issues, but you know what? It was still a good experience. X and Y, it had a piss poor post game, but there was still a lot to do, or at least it had the biggest roster of Pokemon due to the national decks. It was also the first 3D game, which made it a pretty memorable experience, despite not having that much stuff to do at all. Oras was, in my opinion, a pretty good remake of Ruby and Sapphire. It didn't have the Battle Frontier, which was unfortunate, but it had the episode Delta and the overall main game experience, like before post game, like the main game. It was pretty good. I actually genuinely liked Auras. Sun and Moon, unfortunately, was super handholdy on the first half, but after that, it was all right. It was pretty good. I liked the characters. Sun and Moon probably had the second best roster of characters, the first being Sword and Shield. But it's just my opinion. And I absolutely love the Pokemon League here, like the whole title defense thing. Yeah, Sun and Moon had its moments. It wasn't perfect, but again, it was still a pretty good experience. Also, the Ultra Beasts are great. In my opinion, I really, really like the Ultra Beasts. And then came the Switch era. I don't know what happened with Game Freak here. I mean, I guess we'll talk about that later. But oh my god, they fumbled so hard with the Switch era. So, okay, let me get this straight. They started it off with Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which were reimaginings of Gen 1 in a Pokemon Go style gameplay. There were no wild Pokemon battles. There were only like you had to do that. You had to do that in order to catch a Pokemon. They basically wanted to make a Pokemon Go game for the Switch. Visually, the game was great. Out of all the Pokemon games, it also had the best following mechanic. Out of any Pokemon game, it had the best following mechanic. Again, like I said, visuals were great. Like, okay, I was like, okay, right, okay, this is a weird game, but you know what? This is an okay start for the Switch era of Pokemon. 'Cause let's be real. The DS era, it had a bit of a shaky start for Pokemon as well. Like, it took it a couple of years to have its first mainline games, and those first mainline games were very unfinished. I'm talking about you, Diamond and Pearl. But anyways, and then after Let's Go, we had Sword and Shield. It wasn't the worst. I will give it that. It wasn't the worst. The wild area, you can clearly tell it was a rush section of the game. Um, the visuals of the game were really ugly. Like, for some reason, Sword and Shield looked so pink. I I don't know why. It looked very pink. Like I said, the wild area wasn't great. It did not had a good post game. I'm not counting the DLC though. But other than that, that was all my issue with it. Then they made the DLCs, and in my opinion, Isle of Armor should have been in the base game from the start, and then Crown Tundra should have been the DLC. I think that would have been better, or at least it would have been accepted more. Because honestly, Isle of Armor didn't really add much to the game. Like, I liked Urshifu, he was cool, but other than that, yeah, there weren't really anything there. Also, remember the following mechanic in that game? It was dog shit. So after Sword and Shield, like, it wasn't the worst. Like, it had its moments that were good, But oh my god, there were a lot of bad in that game. So after Sword and Shield, they made Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus. Legends Arceus was not a perfect game, but I would say it was the best one in the Switch era. Because of the new catching mechanic. It's just so fun to do. Like, yeah, all you do is just throw Pokeballs, but it's just so fun to do, man. Like, it felt like an actual breath of fresh air to this franchise, which is funny because I mean, Let's Go also had a new catching mechanic, but not a lot of people were talking about that. I personally think that Let's Go was an alright game. That's just me. But anyways, Legends Arceus was a great game. I genuinely liked it. It wasn't perfect though. Like performance-wise, it was pretty spotty in some segments. And then for the visuals, the graphics, it wasn't that good. It looked super muddy. Is muddy the right word or pixelated? But in some areas, it did not look great, especially at the first area, like the first wild area. It looked really bad. But other than that, I really enjoyed Legends Arceus, and I would confidently say that it was probably the best game in the Switch era. BDSP, oh my god, these were the supposed um Gen 4 remakes, and I don't have a lot of Switch games. If you can see that, those are the only Switch games I have. Which again, it's not a lot. But out of all of them, the only one I unironically regret buying was Brilliant Diamond. I bought Brilliant Diamond because I preferred Dialga. But oh, I just didn't like it. It it wasn't fun to play. It really wasn't fun to play. Like it was so tricky to move around because they didn't really design the levels to fit the diagonal movement. It had some weird glitches. There was no battle frontier. The following mechanic was so bad here. Like I would say this is the worst one. The chibi art style. I'm gonna say it. I really didn't like the chibi art style. I kind of wish they did the Oris path where okay, it's not really it's not real it's still slightly chibi-ish, but it wasn't like they weren't mush. Like I don't know, the chibi art style just didn't fit in 3D, you know. Like it was just a weird game and there were moments where I was actually falling asleep when I was playing it. Like BDSP wasn't that great at all. And then they made Sword and Shield. Um how do we talk about Sword and Shield without it sounding like I'm complaining? Sword and Shield was great. It had a good mechanic. It had a good following Pokemon following mechanic. It had that weird mechanic where you order your Pokemon to charge. It was okay. I liked the story. I really liked the characters. Penny is my favorite. Penny was her name, right? The Todoroki girl. I like the music. Like the soundtrack in this game is amazing. But the problem with it was, oh my god, they ran so poorly. It's insane. Like it was really clear that Game Freak was struggling so hard due to time constraints because Pokemon became an annual thing. This was like the tipping point, I feel. Like not Sword and Shield. Scarlet and Violet were like the tipping points of everything. Like this was I feel like this was the last straw, you know? And because of that, Game Freak's finally taking their sweet ass time to ensure that something like that will never happen again. Like I remember last year when the Pokemon Presents happened, and I was overjoyed when I found out that Z Legend ZA was gonna come out this year instead. Like I legit thought it was gonna come out around June or November last year, but no, it's gonna come out this year. So okay, all right, they're taking their time to fix to for this game. And then they did not announce Gen 10. No announcement of Gen 10. That was the other thing I was expecting at the Pokemon Presents last year. Like, okay, anything I'm expecting here? The two things I was expecting was either Gen 10 or a remake of some sort. Not it didn't have to be Gen 5, but a remake of some sort. And they picked Gen 6, and it was a Z, and it was a Legends game, and it's gonna come out this year. And there was zero mention of Gen 10. So I was like, fuck, that's really good. Game Freak's taking their time for Gen 10. Like, we don't have to see that for quite a while. Granted, it did made 2024 a pretty quiet year for the mainline games. Only the mainline games. We got Horizons, we got the TCG Pocket, we had what else? More Cafe Mix updates. Pokemon Unite is still getting updated. Like for everything else other than the mainline games, Pokemon was pretty lively, except for the mainline games. Those were the only things we didn't have last year. There was the Scarlet and Violet DLC, but I mean, the damage has been done, I guess, you know? So they're in a funny position right now because I feel like, how do I say this? Pokemon Presents usually happens at around February, right? So there should be new news for February. But I feel like the other reason why they're holding up Gen 10 is because it's going to be a Switch 2 game, which at this point is pretty obvious now, right? Like, it's going to be a Switch 2 game. A Switch 2 launch title, perhaps? I don't know. It would be funny if it was, but I don't think it will. If it was, I might actually get the Pokemon Special Edition for whatever that was, you know? And I just wish that if Gen 10 is going to come out on the Switch 2, I hope they're able to actually polish the game to run on Switch 2 hardware properly. Because I'm worried it might be like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where, let's be real, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was originally supposed to be for the Wii U. But then the Switch happened, and Monolith was like, shit, we need to make this game work on the new hardware. And because of that, you could you could tell, like, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 could have, it needed a few delays. you know, like compared to Definitive Edition and 3, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was very, very, like, visually that game was really bad. Like, it needed more work. Don't get me wrong, XC2 was a good game, but it needed more work. And I'm worried that might happen for Gen 10. Like, okay, they're gonna make it a Switch 2 game. What if they originally wanted it to be a Switch 1 game? So now they have to play catch up again. Also, by the way, in case you guys are wondering, I'm just guessing here. Like, I don't really write the script for my videos. I'm just rambling. So if I say anything wrong, if I say something somewhat ignorant, well, I hope you guys are okay with that. If you guys, or at least if you think I'm wrong, then please correct me in the comments. I don't really mind. If anything, I really want to read discussions in the comments. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the future of Pokemon. At this point, all I want them to do is to deliver a good game. Is that so much to ask? Now, I mean, the most sensible person would probably say, "Oh, you just need to wait. Let's just be patient. It's Game Freak. They know what they're doing." Oh boy, like a lot of people think that way, and it's fine. That's okay. But you still can't help but wonder, what if it turns out bad? Like after the Switch era, the Switch 1 era, there you do grow that hint of skepticism. Like with each new game, you start to become, huh, okay, I'll probably wait for a few more updates. For me, that started happening with Legends Arceus. Like when I saw it, like the first dodge roll the trainer did in the first trailer, I was like, okay, all right, that's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna look for more. I'm gonna check more updates in the future before I get excited for this. Like it started with Legends Arceus for me, and it got worse with Scarlet and Violet because I was like, first open world game, you say? Can Game Freak do that? you know. Um, I just hope that they're able to make a better polished game this time. Like, if it's still a buggy mess, I'm not even sure if I want to get it. Like, I'm really not sure. Like, I love Pokemon, man. I grew up with this franchise, and nothing will ever change that. But there comes a point where if the games are still underwhelming, I might have to skip them, you know? If the quality of the games are still mediocre, I might just have to skip the next mainline game, and that's unfortunate. So yeah, at the end of the day, I just want them to be good. You know, if it's gonna take a lot longer for them to do it, then that's okay. You know, if it's gonna be a Switch 2 game, that's also okay. It's gonna run on better hardware. They just need to optimize it if that's the case. So yeah, I'm gonna end it there. What are your thoughts on this? I would like to know in the comments, honestly. So yeah, I'm gonna end it there. Okay, so thank you guys for watching and hope you all enjoyed the video. And to everyone who stuck till the end, you guys are the best ones. So goodbye and thank you for watching.